Life has a way of throwing surprises at you when you least expect them. And for Gregory Hughes, surprises were nothing more than disruptions to his carefully orchestrated world. It was a dreary Monday morning, with rain pouring down in relentless sheets. The city streets were a chaotic symphony of impatient drivers honking their horns, wipers squeaking furiously against windshields, and pedestrians rushing under umbrellas that barely kept them dry. Inside the gleaming office tower of Hughes Tech Solutions, the mood was just as gloomy. Gregory, the CEO of the mid-sized tech firm, sat in his corner office, glaring at the storm through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His coffee had gone cold, a server outage had delayed a critical project, and the weather only added to his frustration. Known for his unyielding standards, Gregory ruled his company with an iron fist. Deadlines were non-negotiable, and punctuality was paramount. To him, lateness was not just an inconvenience, it was a breach of trust. When Mia stumbled through the glass doors of the office, nearly an hour late, drenched from head to toe, the tension in the air thickened. Her coat dripped water onto the marble floor, and her usually neat bun was a frizzy mess from the rain. A few coworkers glanced at her sympathetically, but no one dared to intervene. They all knew what was coming. Gregory spotted her immediately, his sharp gaze narrowing. He didn't even give her a chance to set her bag down. "Mia, my office." "Now," he barked, his tone cutting through the open-plan office like a whip. Conversations halted, and all eyes turned toward Mia. Mia hesitated for a fraction of a second, swallowing hard. She was a quiet but hard-working woman, the kind who stayed late to perfect her work and rarely drew attention to herself. In her 6 months at Hughes Tech, she had built a reputation for being dependable, except for her one flaw: she had been late a few times before. As she followed Gregory down the hallway, her wet shoes squeaked against the polished floors, each step echoing in the otherwise silent office. When they reached his office, Gregory didn't even wait for her to sit down. "What is this, Mia?" he demanded, his voice icy. He gestured to the clock on the wall. "You're nearly an hour late. Again." "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hughes," Mia began, her voice trembling. "The rain." "Save it," Gregory cut her off, raising a hand. "I don't have time for excuses. This isn't the first time you've been late, and I can't have someone unreliable on my team. Consider this your last day. HR will handle your exit paperwork." Mia froze, the weight of his words sinking in. Her lips parted as if to protest, but she quickly closed them. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Instead, she nodded stiffly and whispered, "Understood." Gregory watched as she turned and left his office. She didn't slam the door or make a scene. Instead, she quietly gathered her belongings, her movements slow and deliberate. Her coworkers avoided her gaze, unsure of what to say. As she stepped out into the downpour, Gregory stood by his window, watching her figure fade into the storm. For a brief moment, a pang of guilt flickered in his chest, but he quickly dismissed it. Business was business, and there was no room for sentiment in his world. 2 weeks had passed since that rainy Monday, and Gregory hadn't given Mia much thought since. His days were consumed with meetings, deadlines, and the constant demands of running a company. But today was different. Today, he was at his daughter Emily's school for a special event. A day he had marked on his calendar in bold ink. Emily was the center of Gregory's universe. At 8 years old, she was everything he had ever dreamed a daughter could be. Bright, compassionate, and endlessly curious. Her school had organized a performance, and Emily had a small but important role. Gregory had cleared his entire afternoon to be there, determined not to let anything distract him. The performance was delightful, filled with laughter and applause from proud parents. Gregory beamed as Emily took her bow, her face lighting up when she spotted him in the audience. After the show, he surprised her by taking her to their favorite ice cream shop. It was a rare treat for both of them, a moment of joy amidst the chaos of life. As they walked back to the car, Emily skipped ahead, her curly hair bouncing with each step. "Daddy, look," she called, pointing at a stray cat darting across the street. Gregory smiled, his heart full as he watched her. But then, everything happened in an instant. Emily stopped suddenly, crouching down to tie her shoelace. Gregory's smile vanished as he noticed a car careening down the road, its tires screeching against the wet pavement. The driver had lost control, and the vehicle was heading straight toward Emily. "Emily!" Gregory shouted, his voice raw with panic. He started to run, but he knew he wouldn't make it in time. His chest tightened as he braced for the worst. Out of nowhere, a figure darted toward Emily. In a blur, someone grabbed her and pulled her out of the car's path just as the vehicle skidded and crashed into a lamppost. The impact was deafening, glass and metal scattering across the street. Gregory reached Emily and pulled her into his arms, his hands trembling as he checked her for injuries. She was unharmed, though her small frame shook with fear. He looked up to thank the person who had saved her, and his heart nearly stopped. Standing before him, breathless and pale, was Mia. Her clothes were slightly torn, and a small scrape marred her elbow, but her eyes were steady. She met Gregory's stunned gaze with quiet determination, as if saving a child's life was the most natural thing in the world. "Mia?" Gregory whispered, his voice barely audible over the rain and the distant wail of approaching sirens. "Mia?" Gregory's voice was barely above a whisper. Mia nodded, brushing dirt off her hands. "Is she okay?" she asked, her voice calm despite the chaos. Gregory nodded, unable to find words. Emily clung to him, her small frame trembling. "Thank you," he finally managed to say. "You saved her life." Mia gave a faint smile. "Anyone would have done the same," she said, glancing at Emily. "I'm glad she's safe." Before Gregory could say more, Mia turned to leave. "Wait," he called after her. Mia hesitated but didn't turn around. "You don't owe me anything, Mr. Hughes," she said quietly. "I'm just glad I was here." And with that, she walked away, disappearing into the crowd. That night, Gregory lay in bed, staring at the ceiling as rain tapped softly against the window pane. Sleep was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, the events of the day replayed in vivid detail. The screech of tires, the blinding fear in Emily's eyes, and Mia appearing out of nowhere to save her. He could still hear the soft, steady way she had asked, "Is she okay?" as if nothing else mattered. Then, the shame crept in. It gnawed at him, sharper than any criticism he'd faced in his career. He had dismissed Mia without a second thought, without even listening to her side of the story. He'd labeled her unreliable and tossed her aside like she didn't matter. Yet when it counted the most, she had been the one who stepped forward, risking her life to save his daughter. Gregory couldn't shake the image of her walking away after the accident, her head held high despite everything. The weight of his guilt felt unbearable. He had to make things right. The next morning, Gregory was up early, though his night had been sleepless. He made a few calls, pulling strings to get Mia's address. By mid-morning, he was standing in front of a modest apartment complex on the city's outskirts. The building was clean but old, with peeling paint and flower pots lining the small balconies. Emily held his hand, clutching a drawing she had worked on during breakfast. "Daddy, are we going to see the lady who saved me?" she asked, her big brown eyes full of curiosity. "Yes, sweetheart," Gregory said, his voice soft. "We owe her a lot." When Mia opened the door, she looked startled to see them standing there. Her hair was tied back and she wore a simple sweatshirt and jeans, but there was an unmistakable grace about her. "Mr. Hughes?" she asked, her tone cautious but polite. Gregory cleared his throat, feeling uncharacteristically nervous. "Mia, He hesitated, the words catching in his throat. "I owe you an apology, for everything. I was wrong to fire you. I didn't even give you a chance to explain, and that was unfair." He took a deep breath, his voice softening. "And I'm deeply sorry." Mia's expression shifted, her guarded demeanor melting into something gentler. She didn't speak immediately, and Gregory felt the silence stretch uncomfortably. He pressed on. "I'd like you to come back to work, on your terms. And if there's anything else I can do to make this right, please tell me." Before Mia could respond, Emily stepped forward, holding up her drawing. "Thank you for saving me," she said in a small, heartfelt voice. Mia knelt to Emily's height, taking the drawing in her hands. It was a colorful picture of 3 stick figures holding hands, labeled "Me, Daddy, and Mia" in a child's careful handwriting. Mia's lips trembled as her eyes welled up with tears. "You're welcome, Emily," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. She looked up at Gregory, her expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming here," she said at last. "It means a lot." Gregory nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He didn't know if he could ever fully make amends, but this was a start. Mia returned to Hughes Tech Solutions the following week, though she insisted on earning her place back rather than accepting charity. Gregory respected her determination and gave her the space to rebuild her position on her own terms. Her first day back was quiet but productive, and soon, things began to fall into place. Gregory, however, was no longer the same man. The experience had changed him, opening his eyes to the importance of empathy and understanding. He started taking the time to get to know his employees beyond their work output. He encouraged open communication and even implemented flexible policies to support his staff better. Mia thrived in this new environment. Her dedication and talent didn't go unnoticed, and within months, she was promoted to lead a critical project. Her team admired her quiet strength and fairness, and she quickly became a cornerstone of the company. Emily, too, had formed a special bond with Mia. Whenever she visited the office, she would run straight to Mia's desk, her face lighting up with joy. Gregory often found himself marveling at how one act of bravery had brought them all together. Years later, Gregory would reflect on that rainy day when he had fired Mia. It had seemed like a small decision at the time, a simple enforcement of company policy. But life had taught him that the smallest moments could ripple into profound changes. Hughes Tech Solutions became more than just a successful business. It became a place where people felt valued, where their stories mattered, and Gregory, once a man defined by his rigidity, learned that leadership was about more than results. It was about humanity. Mia's bravery had not only saved Emily, but had also given Gregory a chance to change, for the better. Life, he realized, wasn't just about reaching goals. It was about the connections we build, the lives we touch, and the lessons that shape us along the way. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart or made you think, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please take a moment to like this video and share it with your friends and family. It helps us bring more meaningful stories to you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let us know what part of this story resonated with you the most. Your support means the world to us and keeps us inspired to create more. Thank you for being part of our journey.